Hello Axis and Allies players, this is NATO and the CIC, and this is our World War I or Great War scenario. As you can see, it is quite a bit larger than well, anything else we've done so far. So, a little bit about this game. Our scenario starts in 1911 and it actually goes to 1922. So it's fairly long, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So there's pretty much something happening pretty much every turn. So, you know, World War I, so the Entente versus the Central Powers, the Entente being England, France, Imperial Russia, Italy, eventually the United States, and Japan. Central Powers being Germany, German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Ottoman Empire, and then a whole bunch of minors. You got Serbia, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Portugal, Mexico, China, eventually the 1917 Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks. In this case, because Russia lost the Crimean War and the Russo-Japanese War, that means that the Bolsheviks and the 1917 revolution will happen as long as Russia loses enough units. So Germany, the Ottomans, and Austro-Hungary have to inflict enough losses on Russia, and it will trigger the 1917 revolution. There's political events. There's the Second Moroccan Crisis. There's Pancho Villa over in Mexico. There's the Washington Naval Conference. And then the 1918 Armistice and the chaos and fallout from that. You see, there's a lot of nations involved in this. That first row of cash is the treasuries of the different nations. That second and third row of cash, that's all the technologies that can be researched. Some of them are universal, some of them are specific to certain nations. And then there is a twist to some of the technologies. Some of the technologies you get the normal way by buying technology dice and rolling for it, and then, you know, whatever the value is, subtract the points, and once you get it down to 0, you get the technology. But other technologies you only get once you've suffered X amount of casualties. So you actually have to keep track of your losses, and once you reach certain thresholds, that's when certain technologies will unlock. So anyone thinking about just hide behind trenches, that isn't going to work. You're going to if all you do is just sit behind your trenches and never attack, you're going to fall behind in technology, and then when it gets to the second half of the war, you're going to be hurting because your opponents are going to be way ahead of you in technology. So it's going to suck, but you're just going to have to pony up and hit those trench lines, and yeah, you're going to suffer a lot of casualties, but that's the only way you're going to keep up with the technology. Bunch of new units are introduced in this. Dreadnoughts, submarines, planes, zeppelins, You can see Germany has a Zeppelin right there. Airplanes are introduced. This is the first time that strategic bombing is available. Certain nations have the capability of doing that. Virtually every nation has their own unique units now, and they'll have their own special abilities. Like Germany has Zeppelins, Paris guns, stormtroopers, not the Star Wars variety. Britain has miners, and then eventually destroyers. France has the Lafayette Squadron and the French Foreign Legion. Russia has the Cossack Cavalry and the Czech Legion. Italy has the Arditi. The United States has the Marines. And let's see, what else? Central powers, they more or less start at full production. The Entente, they start at reduced production. Like England and France, they start at like roughly half production. British economy is split in between two now. So you have the regular British production, which is pretty much the home islands and Canada, and then you have Colonial Command, which is everything else: Africa, India, Australia. Japan, it doesn't start earning an income and producing until it actually joins the war. The United States, it starts at 10, and how it increases its production is based on what Germany does. So when there's convoy lines now, so when the war starts, if Germany hits a convoy line, whatever England, specifically England, loses from those convoy raids, however much that is, and it's on this convoy line only, however much England loses on that convoy raid is how much American production goes up, is boosted. So Germany has to make a decision. How hard do they want to go after those convoys? Because until England can research convoy tactics, and which also subsequently unlocks destroyers, there's really England no one really has a defense against submarines raiding convoy lines. So Germany has to make a balancing decision. How hard do they want to go after those convoy lines? Because every time they do that, they're increasing American production. So, they can go just heavy and just slam British convoy lines. It's going to make England much weaker, but conversely, it's going to make America a lot stronger. Or they go light on convoy lines, and it's the opposite. Now, England's a lot stronger, but America's weaker. Or Germany can do something in between. So, German player has to make that decision on how they want to balance that. Do they want an immediate, stronger England for a weaker United States late game? Or do they want a weak England early game, but a super America late game? Or do they want something in between? So Germany's going to have to make that decision on what they think would be best for them. Let's see, right out of the gate, turn one, there's a lot of things going on. There's 3 wars going on. right out of the gate. Mexico is in a civil war. Probably why you're wondering why Mexico has been two different colors this whole time. The Italians have gone to war with the Ottomans because Italy's going to take another crack at this colonial empire thing. And so their targets are Tripoli and Libya. That's going to be the deciding factor. Italy gets a point for each for taking it. Ottomans get a point for point each for holding it. Mexico, one side just has to destroy the other. And the Qing dynasty is once again in a civil war. And that is basically whoever has the most production at the end of it wins. It doesn't have any real consequence. It doesn't matter who wins. It's just going to dictate which flag is on the pole when it comes to World War II. Same thing with Mexico. No real consequence. At least long term. Specific to this scenario, there's a consequence. It has something to do with the United States, but we'll basically eventually the Pancho Villa event will happen, where basically a part of the Mexican rebels will actually invade the United States, which will prompt open the door for the United States to intervene in the Mexican Civil War. And the incentive for the United States to do this is when World War when the United States joins World War I, every unit the United States has in Mexico, the United States will get a bonus 1 IPC for every unit that they have in Mexico. And after that, of course, then the United States has to pull out of Mexico because they got bigger concerns. That's later down the road. The first event is the Second Moroccan Crisis, where Germany and France are squabbling over Morocco again. If Germany wants to trigger this event, Germany has to send a cruiser down to 33, and that'll trigger the Second Moroccan Crisis, and Germany will roll a D6, and then France has to send a cruiser down to 33 as well. They'll roll a D6, and whichever has the highest value wins. If Germany wins, then Germany will get a permanent 3 IPC bonus for the rest of the scenario. If France wins, nothing happens. A lot of objectives. And then depending on if the Russian Revolution happens, those victory objectives will change, depending on if the Russian Revolution happens. So it'll be quite the game, quite the show. So we'll start rolling some dice and come back with the first turn update. So like I said, 3 wars going on right now: the Mexican Civil War, Italian Ottoman War, and the Qing Dynasty Civil War, and the Second Moroccan Crisis is going on right now. So see you then. Alright, so we got the first round done, and so we'll just start on the left side of the map and go right. All your various European powers are just building their armies and moving them into position for when the big show kicks off. Russia's doing the same. Balkans are building up. The Ottomans moving forces in to defend. And Mexico, both the rebels and the federales both failed their recruitment roles. And then the rebels, they go first, but they opted to just sit tight. Federales moved in to attack, and everyone whiffed, so no one hit anything. So that was fun. The first Moroccan crisis, this is the second Moroccan crisis now. France fails at sucks at life because Germany rolled a 1, so it should have been easy for France to win. But then France rolled a 1 as well. So if it's a tie, they just keep rolling till someone wins. Then Germany rolled a 4 and France rolled a 2. So Germany wins the second Moroccan crisis. That is ahistorical. Historically, the French sort of won it. Now I think about it, I never went into detail exactly what the second Moroccan crisis is. So basically, Morocco is revolting against France. I mean, it's not a full-scale revolt like, armies and whatnot. It's just at the local Moroccan capital, the Sultan figurehead. Some Moroccans that weren't too happy about stuff he is doing, they kind of rioted. Yeah, I suppose that's a better term. The Morocco wasn't revolting, it was rioting, and depending on how you want to define that term, it could be the same thing or different. But anyways, so the Sultan and some various French delegates and local soldiers barricaded themselves in the Sultan's palace. Germany sent a cruiser down there to, quote-unquote, protect German interests and whatever German citizens were in the area. It's basically, if possible, feasible, in reality, the German cruiser was there to intervene and potentially help the rioters and push the French out of Morocco. But when France didn't back down and a French cruiser showed up as well, Germany more or less backed down. They didn't want to have to fight for this. They wanted to just pull Morocco out from under France without a fight. But that's not what happened here. Germany won, so Germany gets a permanent +3 IPC bonus for the rest of the scenario. Good for them. Very bad for the Entente. Then the Italian-Ottoman War, Italy moved into Tripoli and took it. The Ottomans go before Italy, so they could have reinforced. They don't have a navy, but they could have reinforced with militia. The Ottomans have opted to not fight for North Africa, because with French to the west, Italians to the north, and British to the east, once the Great War actually starts, the Ottomans really have zero chance of holding Tripoli and Libya, so the Ottoman player, also known as my son, has opted to just not fight for something that he's guaranteed to lose, and not why waste resources on something that's you're going to lose anyways. So he's opted to not fight Italy on North Africa and is concentrating his forces in the Balkans instead. Because that's actually a victory point for the Central Powers if they can win that. So And then just the various powers just moving stuff around. Colonial Command moving forces around in preparation for the big show. Germany doing the same, moving its cruisers around. The Chinese Civil War, the Chinese rebels have won. Chinese rebels, they took their infantry out of Beijing, moved into Julin, took it on the march, took it out without resistance, and then they took their forces from Zhejiang and moved into Nanking and got a good roll and took it. So that bumped their production up to, and the Qing Dynasty down to. And then the Chinese rebels in Guangdong moved out and attacked the Imperial forces in Yunnan here. It's not a production territory, so it wouldn't help the rebels in that capacity. But by moving out and attacking the Imperial forces in Yunnan, that blocked them from being able to potentially attack Guangdong and potentially taking it. So it locked out the Qing Dynasty of even having a chance of getting that production point, and you know, basically giving them a point. Granted, with the rebels taking Nanking, it made it irrelevant. The only place that the Imperial forces could have counterattacked to get a point was Beijing, but because they took Nanking, even if that happened, the rebels would still have one production more. So in the long run, it was irrelevant, but the rebels did that in case Nanking didn't go so well. But Nanking went the rebels' way, so it's just added insurance, I guess. Imperial forces tried to retake Beijing. The rebels put down 2 militia in Beijing to cover the exit of the infantry. They attacked with the two or three infantry and a cavalry. They got a hit, but wasn't enough. They needed 2 hits. So Chinese rebels have won. The Qing Dynasty has fallen, and it is no more. Qing Dynasty that's lasted for centuries is gone. So going forward, China will now be under the control of the KMT, but that won't matter until World War II. So China is effectively done for this story, for this game. But we still got the Mexican Civil War and the Italian-Ottoman War going on. So we'll do round 2, and we'll come back with an update. Alright, we're at the beginning of the fall of 1912. And starting with the Mexican Civil War, the Federales attacked the Mexican rebels. They got a hit, but they suffered 2 in return. So Federales are probably going to be on the defensive for a little while until they can rebuild their strength. The United States is building up its forces on the border, and then consolidating its Atlantic and Pacific fleets and building transports. And then the various European powers are just building up and getting ready for the war, positioning their troops and forces. See, the Italian-Ottoman War is over, Italy has succeeded in taking Tripoli and Libya, so that they have won that war. Not that the Ottomans really fought for it. The Ottomans kind of let Italy have that, and instead decided to focus on the Balkans. And that is the new event for this turn. The First Balkan War has begun. So that's Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Romania declared war on the Ottomans over the Balkans. The Balkan League wanted to expand and push the Ottomans out. And then that's pretty much it. That everyone else is building up and moving stuff into position to get ready for when the Great War starts. So we will come back with the update on the First Balkan War. So we'll see you then. Alright, so we are at the fall of 1913, and the First Balkan War is over. We'll just go left to right again. Mexican Civil War is still ongoing. Neither side attacked each other. They just both just rebuilt their forces. The Mexican rebels, they're probably just going to play defensively until after American intervention. They have to have the numbers to survive all that. Once the American intervention is over, then the Mexican rebels can entertain the thought of going on the offensive. The Federales, they just don't have the numbers because they got whacked pretty good last turn. So they're just building numbers to try to get enough mass to go on the offensive again. The only other war, the First Balkan War, is over. Ended with the Balkan League squeezing out a victory. Greece was able to get Macedonia and Albania, and Serbia managed to get Kosovo. So that's 3 points to the Ottomans 1, so 1 point. So they did win that. The Ottomans tried to Hail Mary and counterattack into Bulgaria, but weren't able to pull it off. So the Ottomans will pretty much lose all of this territory right here, and it'll be divided up between Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria. But immediately, the Second Balkan War will begin, and that's a war between Bulgaria, Serbia, and Greece, because Bulgaria wasn't happy about the spoils of war. They thought they should have gotten more, despite the fact that the main contributors to the war and the countries that provided the most troops and lost the most troops was Greece and Serbia. So Bulgaria's claim of we deserve more was not based on much other than they're just being arrogant pricks. So the Second Balkan War will begin immediately. Like I said, that's Bulgaria versus Serbia and Greece. It's a really short war. It's only a couple months, if that. And there's only a handful of battles, and Bulgaria basically got their butts kicked historically. But that's the only conflict on the board right now, or other conflict on the board right now. Germany continuing to build its submarine fleet. Everyone else just building up their armies and moving their forces around the board in preparation for when the Great War starts. I see Russia building up its forces on the border. Same with France and Germany and England, everyone just building up. But it's getting close. There's only 2 more turns before the big show starts, so we'll come back with the resolution of the Second Balkan War with an update. See you then. Alright, we are at the spring of 1914, and the Second Balkan War is over. And going left to right. No action on the Mexican Civil War again. Mexican rebels failed their recruitment role. Federales have gotten really good rolls on the recruitment, and they
Commander, you've got a new message at your private terminal.
Sorry, excuse that. They finally got the numbers to equal the rebels, so next turn they might do an attack. The United States continuing to build up its fleet and troops on the Mexican border. The Second Balkan War, Bulgaria attacked Serbia and Greece, and Kosovo and Macedonia, and it did not go well for Bulgaria. So Bulgaria fails, and they're just going to have to accept the original borders. The Ottomans, because they lost the first Balkan War, had to withdraw out of the Balkans. And then the Ottomans got 2 cruisers from Germany. So the Ottomans now have a fleet. That's bad news for Russia. And speaking of Russia, just continuing to build everything up. They are now at full production. Russia started off at 3 IPCs, and each turn it rolls a dice to increase it up to its maximum of 19, so Russia is at full production now. Everyone else continuing just to build up and move stuff to the front. And pretty much everywhere else is doing the same, just building up. So that's it. So we'll do the spring of 1914 turn, and the only war going on right now is the Mexican Civil War, but that will change because, like I said, this is spring of 1914. Y'all know what happens fall of 1914. This is the last turn before World War I starts, and then the Guns of August. If you have not read that book, highly recommend it. So we will come back with the start of World War I. Alright, we are in the fall of 1914. So, Great War, World War I, whichever you want to call it, has officially begun. I'm not going to go dive too much into the history. Most people that are watching this are fairly well aware of World War I and why it happened, but the short and simple of it is the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Ferdinand, was assassinated down here in Sarajevo. Granted, he wasn't the cause of World War I. He was a trigger. It was not the cause. A lot of people get that mistaken. No, the largest, most destructive conflict in human history at that point was not because of one guy getting shot in the face. If Franz Ferdinand was never assassinated that day in July, World War I still probably would have happened. It would have just been something else that triggered it. Anyway, so this first turn of World War I, there's some special special rules that apply only for this first turn. First one being Austro-Hungary has to attack Serbia. It's what starts this whole mess. So, Austro-Hungary has to attack Serbia. After that, they can do whatever the hell they want. And they can attack it with as much or as little as they want. They can attack it with 1 infantry if they want, but regardless of what they do, they have to attack Serbia with something. That's what starts this whole damn mess. Second rule that's only applicable for this first turn: the only combat that can occur is only land combat in Europe. Can't fight anywhere else on the board. It's only land combat in Europe this first turn. That's because no one, well, I shouldn't say no one, but enough people in the higher echelons of the various governments believed that this would be a short war, over by Christmas kind of thing. They did not believe this would be a long, drawn-out conflict, so the various governments didn't really issue any orders to their overseas colonies, or the navies didn't really, on a large scale, navies didn't really go out to do bodily harm to anybody, because they thought this would only be a couple months. Because like all the other wars of the last 50 or so years have been relatively short, and at least for the Europeans, relatively bloodless. So they figured this would be no different. Italy and the Ottomans are not in the conflict yet. The Ottomans, they'll join the conflict when it gets their turn, which is near the end of the round. Italy does not join until next turn. And then Germany, France, and England, they both get 2 combat phases this turn. It's only for this round. So what that means is Germany will do their phase 1 purchase, and then put their purchase units in the new units circle. They'll do a combat movement. They'll do a combat. Then France will do the same. They'll do a purchase. They'll do a combat movement. Do a combat. Then England will do purchase, combat movement, combat. And then it'll go back to Germany, and then they'll get another combat movement, and then another combat, and then they'll just finish out their turn. And then France will do the same, and then England will do the same. And then after that, all the other nations, it's just their normal, one phase of everything. So there'll be, what it'll look like, there'll be German, French, and British production all sitting in this production queue at the same time. And that's only for this first round. After that, everything goes back to normal. And in terms of England can do what would normally be considered a non-combat movement. England can do 1 non-combat movement as a combat movement. So, Germany purchases their stuff, does their combat movement, does their combat. France does the same. England, probably make a little more sense if we go to the blue up here. England, because it can only do purchase, combat, movement, combat, England could take forces and land it in Picardia or land it in France somewhere, or Belgium. Technically that would be a non-combat movement, but for this first turn, and they can use one of their combat movements to do a non-combat movement, if that makes sense. But and then no technology can be researched this turn either. Technology has been locked this whole game so far. Well, I should clarify. Technology that you can purchase research dice to roll is locked this turn. Technologies that require X amount of casualties will now start counting. So, what is that? So, creeping barrage, tanks. If you're France or British, chemical weapons, and the Russian Civil War track. Those all start counting now. So technologies that require you to have suffered X amount of casualties will start counting now. The technologies that you actually pay for a research dice are still locked. That will open next turn, 1915. Oh, and trenches cannot be built until 1915, so next turn. So that's about everything. Germany has a Zeppelin that it could use to strategically bomb factories, whether it be London or Paris. But once again, that's locked out this turn. Like I said, it's only ground combat. Zeppelin strategically bombing a factory or a facility is technically an air combat operation. So, it is just ground forces. The only air asset that can be used is regular planes. Now keep in mind at this point, planes, fighters, quote unquote, all they can be used is to scout. Interrupter gear has not been invented, so planes do not have an effective way to shoot each other down yet. So at this point, the only thing that fighters, planes can do is scout and correct artillery strikes. So whatever combat that's going on that has a plane fighter with it, that artillery will hit at a 4 or less instead of a 3. So that's the only air asset that can be used this turn. And there's really nothing anyone can do about that until the interrupter gear is researched. Once that's researched, then planes can start shooting each other down, and we'll be able to interdict that scouting +1 to artillery. The only conflict going on last turn was the Mexican Civil War. The Federales did launch an attack and came out dead even. They hit rebel infantry for 1 loss of their own. So that's about it. Come back next turn with a recap of what happened for the first round of World War I. See you then. Alright, we're at the spring of 1915. So we've done the first turn of World War I. Like I said previously, there are some restrictions for the first turn. It's just ground combat and only in Europe. The Ottomans are the exception. They can do naval combat and they can attack outside of Europe. And the Ottomans don't join the war till it's actually their turn, so for the first half of the first turn, the Ottomans are not in it, and they can't be touched. But, so anyway, recap of the first turn. Mexican Civil War, no one attacked anybody. Just trying to build up their forces. The rebels failed the recruitment rule. The Federales succeeded, so maybe now that they're back to equal numbers, maybe Federales might attack, maybe. We'll see. United States, still building up. It put down a Marine and an artillery in D.C. for probable future operations in Europe. And speaking of Europe, Germany attacked across the board. Germany attacked into Belgium and took it, and then attacked Lorraine. Verdun is off limits to the Germans for the first turn, so that's why they didn't go into Verdun. England moved its forces into Picardia to block the German advance, and then France did a counterattack in Lorraine, and it was ungodly bloody on both sides. Germany has already unlocked creeping barrage, and that's one of the technologies that you only get through casualties. So Germany has already exceeded the amount of casualties to unlock creeping barrage. So it was pretty crazy. And then Germany, on its second pulse, moved into Picardia and made contact with the British for the first time. That was equally bloody. Austria moved into Serbia. Like it had to, didn't have a choice, because that's what starts this whole conflict, is Austria invading Serbia. Went pretty good for the Austrians. They killed a Serbian unit with no losses of their own. And then Eastern Front, Germany moved in and attacked Poland, and it whittled both sides down to practically nothing. Russia attacked Prussia and then Galicia. About equal losses on both sides. And then Ottomans joined the war. Ottomans took their 2 cruisers, attacked the 2 Russian cruisers in the Black Sea, killed them, destroyed them, so the Russian Black Sea fleet has been completely destroyed. The Ottomans now have naval supremacy in the Black Sea, which will be big for the Ottomans. You can see there's a Russian convoy line there that they can now go after. The Ottomans moved into Transcaucasia, keep the front out of Ottoman territory and to contest the territory, which drops Russian production down by 2, because every little bit helps. And the other attack the Ottomans did was in Cairo. Ottomans definitely came out with the worst for the wear. That's the Ottomans, and then that's the British Colonial Command troops. So didn't go so well for the Ottomans on that one. As even with the fighter providing artillery correction, so Ottoman artillery is hitting out of 4, whereas British Colonial Command artillery is only hitting out of 3. The Ottomans still got the worst of that fight. With the exception of the naval battle in the Black Sea, no naval battles just because they can't. That was locked out. But now with 1915, it's the spring of 1915, some new things. Particularly the big ones, particularly Italy and Japan have now entered the war on the Entente side. And all combat across the whole board is open. So naval combat anywhere, ground combat anywhere, it's all been unlocked. So World War I has truly now gone global. Let's see. There's some technologies that unlock now. Trenches are unlocked, so various powers can now start building trenches. Let's see. Germany now has chemical weapons. All the other powers, Germany gets chemical weapons right out of the gate. All the other powers, they have to make a full attack against a trench line to get chemical weapons. And so when I say full attack, I mean you have to attack a trench line with everything you have in a territory. So it's not like attack a trench with 1 infantry, you get chemical weapons. No, you have to make a full-on attack. Be honest, make a full-on attack against a trench line to get chemical weapons. And what that does is, infantry that have a trench line, they defend out of 4 on a D6. If you have chemical weapons and you attack a trench line, you have chemical weapons, so that infantry now defends out of 3 instead of a 4. So that's what chemical weapons do. And then Germany, like I said earlier, Germany unlocked creeping barrage because they met their casualty threshold for that already. That's one of the things about my version of World War I is you will lose units and you will lose a lot of them. I don't know the exact number. I didn't make a total count because the technology that requires casualties to unlock, I just took from the money pile. But between England, France, Germany, and Russia, easily between 20 and 30 units disappeared from the board. Easily. Probably more. But anyways, what Creeping Barrage does is it allows you to pair infantry to artillery on a one-to-one basis, and now that infantry now attacks at a 2 instead of a 1. So the goal, with trenches, infantry defending at a 4, and infantry attacking at a 1, the goal is to, it's a 1 to 4 gap. So the goal of all the technology is in this game is to bring that gap down as much as possible, if not make it equal. So you have creeping barrage and chemical weapons. And you have enough artillery to pair to the infantry. Your infantry are attacking at a 2, and opposing infantry are defending at a 3. That's not so bad. That's pretty close to equal instead of attacking at a 1 against stuff that's defending at a 4. And then later on, when the Entente gets tanks, tanks can cancel as long as you're attacking, tanks can cancel on a one-to-one basis. Tanks can cancel a hit that came from an enemy infantry. Doesn't cancel enemy artillery hits, just infantry hits. So when everything is going and the certain technologies are in place, you can more or less effectively negate the effects of a trench. That's what all the technology is geared around. And speaking of technology, now that it's 1915, the various powers can actually start researching technology that doesn't require casualties. So like interrupter gear, advanced fighters, German tanks, for England, the convoy system, that kind of stuff. So, that is the 1914. So we'll do the spring of 1915 turn. So now everyone is involved with the exception of America. So it should get a lot more interesting. So we'll roll the 1915 turn and come back with an update. Alright, we are now at the fall of 1915, so the Great War has been going on for 1 full year, and a lot happened. This was the first turn that everything was unlocked. No restrictions, everything could be fought anywhere. So we'll start with Mexico. Federales attacked the Mexican rebels. It was a disaster. They lost 2 infantry. Rebels lost nothing. The United States, now it's full total war. The United States has a special arrangement with France in that the United States can buy certain units for France. So the United States did that. It purchased 3 infantry, which it then gives to France, and it turns into the French Foreign Legion that has to be placed in Algeria. And it's just kind of elite infantry, has a +1 attack and defense. Let's see, then Western Front. This is the first turn. The trenches were unlocked, so most of the power spent the turn laying down trenches. The British and Germans put down trench in Picardia. Germany attacked Verdun. France put down a trench there. Germany and France put down trenches in Lorraine. So the Western theater is pretty much all trenched up. Germany made the first Zeppelin attack on London. Germany put out one of its unique units, the Paris gun, or one of its other unique units, the Paris gun. That can strategically hit targets 1 territory away, so Germany could keep this in Western Germany and it could hit targets in Lorraine, or better yet, it can move it into Lorraine and it could bomb Paris's factory. It can only move, this gun is huge. It's one of the largest guns ever made in human history. So it can only move along rail lines, and it does take up rail capacity. Let's see, Austria, Italy joined the war, so Austria attacked northern Italy. Italy didn't counterattack, it just put down a trench. Italy did attack the Austrian fleet and destroyed it. The only thing left of the Italian fleet, though, is a damaged dreadnought. But with the Austrian fleet gone, that secured Rome, and that allowed Italy to move the forces it had guarding Rome up in northern Italy. The Eastern Front, Germany took Donoslavsky, or southwestern Poland, attacked northwestern Poland, and it's more or less a stalemate there. Russia in turn put down trenches. Russia attacked Germany and Prussia and Austria and Galicia. About equal losses. Russia put out the Czech Legion as a group of Czechs who saw this as an opportunity to break away from the Austro-Hungarian Empire and gain independence. So as a group of Czechs fighting on the Russian side against Austria in this game. It's one of Russia's unique units, and its elite infantry costs 4, tax and defense at a +1, but it can only fight against Austrian forces. Russia can't use it against anyone else. It can only be used against Austrians. The Ottomans, they did a convoy raid on this Russian convoy line right here. Succeeded, took its maximum IPC value. Speaking of that, Germany, it convoy raided everywhere it could, including here in the Pacific. Germany invaded and took Nigeria. Granted, it was without a fight, but France attacked German Togoland, took it. Colonial Command attacked German Southwest Africa, took it. They moved into German East Africa, but it was a draw. Italy took the Dervish states without a fight. Colonial Command attacked the Ottomans in Cairo. It was a draw, equal losses. Japan, who has now entered the war, attacked the German cruiser here that was convoy raiding, destroyed it, and then landed forces in the German colony here, took it. Colonial Command attacked the German-held Kaiser Wilhelm land and took it. So, has reduced Germany down from 35 all the way down to 27. Let's see, technology. Austria, Germany, and the Ottomans have unlocked creeping barrage. And Germany has chemical weapons, so Central powers that have the technological advantage right now. More worrisome is Russia. This is only the second turn of World War I, the first full turn of World War I, and already the Central powers only need to inflict either 12 or 13 more casualties on Russia, and they force the Russian Revolution. So Russia has suffered that many casualties already. Granted, everybody has, but the new events for this turn, for fall of 1915, is Bulgaria joins. Bulgaria has joined the war on the Central Powers side, and Libya, and the Libyan revolt has occurred. So Tripoli and Libya has both revolted. So Italy has to put that down. And Bulgaria joining the war, other than the Central Powers get another country and some forces and some extra units, the more important factor of that is, see the rail line. If Germany and the Ottomans can complete a rail line, an unobstructed rail line from Berlin to Constantinople, both sides will get a +3 IPC bonus for the trade and ability to move. It basically connect all three Central Powers capitals. It'll connect Berlin, Vienna, and Constantinople, and so they'll be able to. Germany and the Ottomans will be able to get a +3 IPC bonus, which they sorely need. But if you know how easy it is to see, but if you look at the rail line, Serbia is in the way. So Central Powers have to take Serbia down to complete that rail link, and they'll get that IPC bonus. So pretty safe to assume that that will be a primary goal for the Central Powers this coming turn, is to knock Serbia out so they can complete that rail link. So, but that was first full turn of World War I. We'll come back with the spring of 1916. See you then. Alright, so I got the fall of 1915 recap. Mexican Civil War was quiet. No one attacked anybody. Mexican rebels getting ready for possible American intervention. Federales recovering from their last attack. So we'll go to the Western Front, and it was very bloody turn between England and France. They lost, just England and France, they lost somewhere around 20 infantry between the two. So it was brutal because neither England nor France had chemical weapons or creeping barrage or anything like that, so they had to pretty much attack German trenches with the German trenches at full force. So it hurt. It hurt a lot. But see, England, when went on the offensive in Picardia, I think they lost something like 12 infantry in that one attack. But it did give them the casualty threshold for, and because they made a full attack against a trench, England, although it was costly, extremely costly for them, it unlocked 3 technologies for them. They got chemical weapons, creeping barrage, and tanks for the effort. So England will be able to negate the effects of trenches much better going forward. Germany did complete its research into interrupter gear, so its fighters can now, its planes are now fighter planes, and they can now shoot down enemy planes. Which has forced the Entente forces to pull their planes back because they'd be helpless until they themselves can complete their interrupter gear research. See, France, and Germany continuing to strategically bomb London with its Zeppelin. Germany moved the Paris gun into Lorraine to possibly start going after the Paris factory. France, same thing, attacked the German forces in Lorraine and didn't suffer quite as badly as England, but it still hurt them pretty bad. So France now has chemical weapons and creeping barrage. They were just shy of unlocking tanks. I think they were 1 or 2 casualties shy of unlocking tanks. So that was kind of a rough break for France. German submarines still wreaking havoc with Entente shipping. Entente convoys, particularly British convoys, are going to pretty much be at the mercy of German submarines until England can complete its research into convoys. Eastern Front, Germany is close to breaking through in northwest Poland. Right here. This turn or next turn, Germany will probably be moving on Warsaw. Russia attacked Austria and Galicia, and it went very badly for Russia. They didn't get a single hit on the Austrian forces, and the Austrians destroyed all but 1 artillery in the Czech Legion for Russia. The Russian attack in Prussia went a lot better. Managed to kill 3 German militia for no losses of their own. But the war in Poland for Russia is not going so well. Now in the Balkans, Austria made another offensive into Serbia and whittled the Serbs down to 1 infantry. Bulgaria joined this turn. They attacked Serbia from the other side, but fortunately for Serbia, everything whiffed. See, in Africa, France destroyed the German forces in this sub-Sahara Africa, west coast Africa. Then Italy, an attempt at trying to put down the Libyan revolt, they concentrated their forces in Tripoli and managed to destroy 1 rebel infantry for a loss of their own. England attacked the Ottomans in Cairo and reduced them down to 1 artillery and a plane. But then the Ottomans moved in some reinforcements, moved up the numbers again. British colonial command, they attacked the Germans in German East Africa, and they didn't get a hit, but suffered a hit themselves. Then in the Pacific, Japan attacked the German cruiser here that was raiding the convoy lines, managed to sink it, but the Japanese dreadnought was damaged in the process, so that's going to have to go back for repairs. So that was it for fall of 1915. So going into spring of 1916, England has tanks now, so that's a new unit type entering the war. And like I said, on the attack, that cancels on a 1-to-1 basis enemy infantry hits. But global events that will be happening this turn. Portugal is joining the war on the Entente side. And then we have 2 revolts happening. The Arab revolt down here in the Hejaz. And then Ireland is revolting, the Easter Rising. So two new revolts going on that they'll have to try to put down amongst everything else going on. Russia is dangerously close to having the Russian Revolution of 1917 happen. Central powers only need to inflict like 3 or 4 more casualties on Russia, and it will trigger the Russian Revolution in 1917. Let's see. America, the United States, the Mexican rebels, they this turn they have to send 1 infantry into the United States to attack it. And then after that, the United States will have the option to intervene in the Mexican Civil War this turn. So I'm foreseeing that the United States will probably intervene. Why wouldn't they? They get an extra. They get an extra dollar for every unit that's in Mexico once they join World War I. So why wouldn't they? And the United States has been sitting on the sidelines this whole scenario, so it's finally gives them something to do. So we will do the spring of 1916 and come back with another update. See you then. Hello, we're back with the recap for the spring of 1916. So the Mexican rebels foolishly went into the United States and attacked a small town. It was very quickly beaten back, and then the United States, in retaliation, sent an entire army down into northern Mexico to hunt the people responsible down. The Mexican rebels lost 2 infantry, and the United States lost 2 infantry, so it was an even fight. The Federales decided not to attack, decided to just sit back and let the Americans do the fighting, knock down as many Mexican rebels as they can before the United States gets distracted with other things, and then the Federales will maybe consider attacking after that. The battle for the Atlantic didn't go so well for Germany. German subs came up with zilch on this convoy line, and on this convoy line, the Germans only managed to sink one or two IPCs worth of production. So not a good turn for the German submarine fleet. The Western Front, England made an attack in Picardia. This time it went a lot better than last time. As roughly equal losses. I think England might have lost only like 1 or 2 more units than Germany. But England having chemical weapons and creeping barrage allowed them to fight the German trenches on a more even footing. And if you can see over here in London, England has produced its first tanks, so that will come to play this coming turn. We'll have our first engagement involving tanks, so that'll be exciting. And that will also unlock a technology for Germany. First time an Entente power uses tanks in battle, that'll allow Germany to start researching tanks. And also give German artillery a special ability that on a 1 or a 2 they can get target selection on Entente tanks. France made another attack on Lorraine, kind of similar to England, a lot more even in terms of losses because of the technologies that have been rolled out. But France has completed its research in interrupter gear, so now it can finally get its planes upgraded to fighters, can now finally get in the fight and do something about the complete air supremacy that the Germans have enjoyed so far. Because of that, the United States has sent some volunteer pilots over to France. They'll form the Lafayette Squadron, and they're just an elite fighter unit. Has a +1 attack and defense. So this coming turn, we might have our first dogfight of the war. Let's see. Italy attacked the Austrians in the Alps again. About equal losses. Germany did a Zeppelin attack on London, did 2 points of damage. Germany used its Paris gun for the first time in a strategic role, hit the Paris factory for 2 points of damage as well. Over here on the Eastern Front, Serbia has fallen. The combined Austrian and Bulgarian forces were too much for Serbia, and Serbia has been conquered by Austria. Germans attacked in northwestern Poland and southeastern Poland. Southeastern attack didn't go so well for Germany, but the northwestern attack broke through, so Germany has now taken that territory. Warsaw is very much on the target list. It has to be. Russia attacked Prussia again, almost broke through. Missed it by 1. Germany has 1 militia surviving, so that might force Germany to divert reinforcements to Prussia. Which are sorely needed in Poland. Russia attacked in Galicia again. That was even exchange, 1 for 1. The Ottomans did a convoy raid in the Black Sea. It was successful. Did maximum damage to this Russian convoy line right there. So that's 2 IPCs gone for them. But the important news for the Eastern Front is the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the Bolsheviks and the Soviets will happen. The Central Powers only need to inflict 1 more casualty on Russia, and it will force the Russian Revolution. So that is guaranteed to happen. Russia's going to lose a unit somewhere. So the Russian Revolution and the Soviet Bolsheviks will happen. Great news for the Central Powers, because that will essentially close the Eastern Front and allow the Central Powers to just divert everything west. Bad news for the Entente. France liberated Nigeria for the British, and so the only remaining German units in Africa is this 1 infantry in German East Africa. As you can see, the Colonial Command is bringing in substantial forces, so that will fall sooner rather than later. Italy has put down the revolt in Tripoli, so now it's just got the revolt in Libya left. England put down the revolt in Ireland as well. Colonial Command's been building up its forces in Yemen for a probable future attack into Iraq at some point. The Colonial Command attacked the Ottomans in Cairo again, almost pushed them out, dropped them down to an infantry in the plain. But Ottomans have reinforced since then. The Ottomans haven't moved to put the revolt down in Hejaz yet. They just haven't had the manpower yet. Every available unit has had to go into Cairo to keep the British at bay. So maybe now that rail line to connect Berlin, Vienna, and Constantinople is open, and Germany and the Ottomans are getting that +3 IPC bonus. Maybe the Ottomans might have the production to build up a force to go down and deal with that revolt, but as of right now, it just doesn't have the manpower to deal with it, because the British Colonial Command in Cairo takes priority. Over in the Pacific, the last German cruiser has been sunk. The Japanese lost a cruiser in return. The damaged Japanese dreadnought is returned to the home island for repairs. And the Japanese landed on Palau and took it from the Germans. So the last naval threat to the Entente has been eliminated in the Pacific. And now all that's left for German possessions in the Pacific is the Caroline, the Marshalls, and Ponape, and which Japan will be going after. England is constructing a mine. So one of the things that the British did to try to break the stalemate on the Western Front is England had a big coal mining industry, underground coal mining industry. So England took all these experienced underground miners, sent them to the Western Front, and had them dig mines under the German trenches, fill them with explosives, and set them off. This is the first turn that England's had that technology. It takes 2 turns to build it. First installment of 2 IPCs, and then second installment of 3. So England is in the process of building an underground mine, underground tunnel under the German trenches to blow it up. So, so that's the recap for the spring 1916. We'll start the fall of 1916. And the event for this turn is Romania joins the war on the Entente side. So we'll come back with a fall of 1916 update. Alright, now we got the fall of 1916 done. So we'll start with the Mexican Civil War. The United States attacked the rebels once again. Each got a hit. And then the Federales attacked, and they each got 2 hits. So pretty heavy casualties in the Mexican Civil War. The Battle for the Atlantic, this northern line, Germans didn't get anything, but this southern line, the Germans managed to get 5 IPCs of damage, and then their Zeppelin raid on London did 1 damage. The Paris gun did 2 points of damage on the Paris factory. And then the Western Front, we had our first tank engagement in Picardia. British attacked, and for the first time ever, scenario-wide and game-wide, tanks were used for the first time. And managed to cancel out a hit from the Germans. The French, then in the French down in Lorraine, we had our first dogfight of the war and for the entire series. The British fighter and the American volunteer Lafayette Squadron faced off against that German fighter. No one hit anything, so no one got the +1 artillery bonus because neither side got air dominance. The French put out their first tank, or tanks I should say. Portugal's forces have arrived in Paris. The French attacked the Germans in Lorraine, did quite a bit of damage. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of German forces in Lorraine right now. Italy attacked the Austrians in the Alps. Again, Italy completed their interrupter gear research, so the Austrians were forced to pull their fighter back. Or their plane back, it's not a fighter yet, because Austria has not completed interrupter gear yet. The Eastern Front, Germany attacked and took Warsaw. Austria invaded Romania and took it, so Romania has fallen. Russia counterattacked into Romania and is now contested. Russia attacked Galicia. Did not go so well for Russia. They lost all their units except for the Czech Legion and an artillery. They attacked Prussia, kind of same result. Or no, actually, it's 2-2. It was even losses. Germany lost 2, Russia lost 2. That was it. The Ottomans went after the Russian convoy line. Didn't get anything. France took Cameroon, and the British Colonial Command took German East Africa. So Germany has lost all of its African holdings. The Colonial Command also pushed the Ottomans out of Cairo, forcing the Ottomans to retreat to Palestine and form a new defensive line there. Colonial Command attacked Iraq. No hits were made. Italy moved into Libya to put down the remnants of the revolt. Got one hit, but were not able to finish it off. And in the Pacific, the Japanese came down and took the Caroline Islands from Germany. So now all that Germany has left is the Marshalls and Penape. And that is pretty much the fall of 1916. We are now in the spring of 1917. And the events for that are Greece has joined the war on the Entente side, and the United States has joined the war on the Entente side. And the French army has mutinied. So the France cannot make any attacks. The French army cannot make any attacks this turn. It can defend, but it cannot attack. So that's good news for the Germans in Lorraine. It'll give them a free turn to reinforce Lorraine, which they desperately need. The British have completed their convoy research, so the British will now be able to organize these trade lines into convoys, and unlocks destroyers for the British. So the British will be able to start producing destroyers and go after these subs that have been wreaking havoc on British shipping this entire war. So, with that, we will get going with the spring of 1917, and this is the last turn that Russia will be involved in World War I. They're not removed from the game. They still are part of the scenario. They just won't be. They will withdraw from the World War I conflict. They'll sign a peace treaty with Germany, Austria, and the Ottomans. And because all the prerequisites have been met, Russia lost the Crimean War, lost the Russo-Japanese War, and has suffered the required amount of casualties. So, like I said, last part, the Russian Revolution will happen. So this is the last turn that Russia will be involved in the Great War. Next turn, Russia falls apart and splits into civil war. So Russia's got to make this turn count. So we'll see you with the recap of spring 1917. Alright, here's the recap for the spring of 1917. Over in Mexico, the United States pulled out of Mexico because it has now entered World War I, so it's got bigger fish to fry. And the Federales, they attacked the Mexican rebels, didn't get any hits, suffered a hit themselves, but they were successful on their recruitment roll. And the Battle of the Atlantic, England got clobbered this round. The Zeppelin did 5 points of damage on the London factory, and then they did 5 points on this convoy line and 6 points on this convoy line. So England lost all 4 possible points on this line, and then America had to give up an IPC, and then England lost all 6 points on this line. So England lost 15 IPCs between convoys and Zeppelin raids. So that was brutal for England. Lost half of its money before it could even do its turn. Let's see. You'll notice that there is no German fleet, and there is 3 damaged British dreadnoughts. That's because the German High Seas Fleet came out and attacked the British fleet, providing the blockade. The German fleet was completely sunk, but it managed to damage all 3 British dreadnoughts and sink 2 British cruisers. So, with that, those 4 German submarines and that 1 Ottoman cruiser in the Black Sea constitute the entirety of the remaining Central Powers Navy. Let's see, on the Western Front, the French army was under mutiny this turn, so they could not attack. So they just moved some forces around and reinforced. The Americans weren't in Europe yet, because America doesn't take their turn till near the end of the round. So the only Entente force in the Western Theater capable of attacking was the British, which they did, and came out about equal. The British detonated those mines under the German trenches, killing hitting 2 German infantry. The British finally unlocked their interrupter gear, so the British will finally be able to get their plane, now fighter, involved in the fight and do something about the German air dominance in Picardia. The Paris gun did 2 points of damage on the Paris factory. Italy attacked the Austrians in the Alps again. More or less came out as a draw. See, in the Eastern Theater, Central Austria moved into Greece to contest it, reduced it. They got one hit. I think they got one hit apiece. The Austrians got a hit, the Greeks got a hit. Then the British Colonial Command landed reinforcements and infantry and artillery. And then Bulgaria responded in kind. Bulgaria moved into Greece to support its Austrian allies. And then, because this was Russia's last turn in the Great War, Russia basically just went on an all-out attack across the entire Eastern Theater. They didn't do. Did some damage to the Austrians in Romania. And they didn't attack Galicia, but they attacked the Germans in East Poland, Warsaw, and Prussia. And didn't do any damage in Prussia, but in East Poland and Warsaw itself, gave the Germans a pretty bloody nose. Germans lost all of its artillery and reduced German forces in Poland down to 5 infantry. So Russia's last hurrah was pretty effective in Poland. And then the Russians also attacked the Ottomans in Transcaucasia and reduced it down to 2 infantry and an artillery. Let's see. British Colonial Command moved into Palestine, attacked the Ottomans there. Really didn't do much. Colonial Command got some pretty bad rolls in the Middle East, because Colonial Command attacked the Ottomans in Iraq as well, and everything missed. So kind of a disappointing round for Colonial Command in the Middle East. Italy did finally put down the Libyan revolt. So Italy has gained complete control of Tripoli and Libya again. Japan landed in the Marshalls, took it. So now the only German possession in the Pacific is Ponape, right here. And then, as you can see, the United States, it's now entered the war, so they came across the pond with their fleet, landed its Marines and artillery in Normandy, potentially foreshadowing something 20-ish years down the road. So that was about it for the spring of 1917. So we are now in the fall of 1917, and probably wondering what all that crap in Russia is. Well, remember, all the prerequisites for the Russian Revolution of 1917 have been met. So Russia has dropped from the Great War and has fallen into total chaos and civil war. So this is what Russia looks like now. The Ukraine, the Baltic states, and Finland have broken off and declared their independence. Bessarabia, North Caucasia, and Transcaucasia have declared themselves neutral, and this kind of band in the middle: Petrograd, Western Russia, Moscow, Manish, Tsaritsyn, and Donetsk, Kuban have all been taken over by the Soviets, and the rest of Russia has split up into three separate White Russian factions. You got the North White Russians with this kind of green, light green color. You got the South White Russians with this kind of brown color, and then the East White Russians, which are basically the rest of Russia east of the Urals. So all this is the White Russians. There's a quirk to the White Russians because historically they were extremely disorganized and really operated as independent subfactions of each other. So how that's going to work is when it becomes the White Russians' turn, which is just going to take the spot of the old Russian Empire turn, they'll roll a dice, and depending on what number comes up will dictate which White Russian faction is activated and gets to take a turn. The other two just have to sit there, can't do anything. And then there's a bunch of stuff that will be going on as well. So like Germany can lease units to Finland. The quote-unquote white Finns, because Finland is on the verge of civil war. Finland will fall into a civil war next turn. So Germany can lease units to the White Russians, White Finns. The Soviets can lease to the Red Finns. And then that's how Finland gets its forces for the Civil War. Now, on top of that, England and France can station units in Finland and will be hostile to Soviet forces. So, if the Soviets invade Finland, which they can do at any time, they'd have to fight the British and French forces as well as the White Finnish forces. Granted, that's probably not going to happen because they have this very strong North White Russian presence here, and on top of that, it just makes more sense to wait for the Finnish Civil War to conclude. Because if the Red Finns win the Civil War, then Finland becomes communist, and Russia takes it the Soviets take it without a fight. So, Baltic states, same thing. Germany, England, and France can all lease units to the Baltic states and station troops in the Baltic states to counter any Soviet invasions. So this is when I said the Russian Civil War is chaotic as all hell. This is one of those points where
England, France, and Germany, even though England and France are at war with Germany, England, France, and Germany can work together in the Baltic states to keep the Soviets out, even though they're at war with each other. And this really did happen historically, because, like I said, the Russian Civil War was total chaos. So right now, the Soviets are at war with the White Russians, of course, and Ukraine. Depending on how the Great War turns out, if it's an Entente victory, the Soviets will be at war with Poland as well. If the Central Powers win, then they keep Poland. England and France can station troops in Archangel as well. The United States and Japan can station troops in Angara, all hostile to the Soviets. They can't, England and France can station troops in Archangel and the Baltics, but they can't move out of those areas. So England and France couldn't land troops in Archangel and then invade Western Russia. They had to stay in Archangel, and same with the Baltic states. England and France won't be able to station troops in the Baltic states until after the Great War is over, because they don't have access to the Baltic states currently, because this is controlled by Germany, who they're at war with. So the only thing that England and France could do troop-wise is station troops in Finland and Archangel. But that's the basic rundown of what will be happening this next turn, this fall of 1917. So it'll be interesting to say the least. So we'll do that turn and we'll come back with an update. Alright, we got the fall of 1917 recap. So, Mexican Civil War, stayed quiet. Both sides just reinforced each other. The United States pulled a transport back from Europe to load up these guys to send them to Angara. It's over in Russia. Battle for Atlantic. Brits got what'd they get? The convoys, the Germans were only able to do 1 point of damage, and that was down here on this line. The British, with their new destroyers, or new destroyer, came out, managed to sink one of the German submarines, so the Entente finally has a counter to German submarines. They repaired one of their dreadnoughts. German Zeppelin did six points of damage on the London factory. And then Paris gun did 5 points of damage on the Paris factory. And the Eastern Front, things are getting a little dire for the Germans. The Entente war machine is in full swing, and with fighting, even though Russia's out of it and it's narrowed it down to a one-front war for Germany, just fighting England, France, and the United States all at the same time is just not a war it can win in the long term. Thankfully, there's only 2 turns left in the Great War before the armistice is signed. So Germany Germany has to hold out for just 2 more turns, but even it's going to be a tall order. Be surprised if Germany can hold on in Picardia for 2 rounds. More than likely, it's going to get pushed out in this next round. Lorraine, they might be able to hold out for 2 rounds, especially when they got all the Eastern Front forces coming back. A lot of dogfights. Germany lost its fighter in Picardia to the British, and then France lost its fighter in Lorraine to the Germans. Germany unlocked advanced fighters and tanks, so Germany can start producing its own tanks. What that will do is it will negate the special ability of Entente tanks, which is canceling the infantry hit. And also their Germany having their specially trained anti-tank artillery crews has been taking a toll on Entente tank crews. They completely wiped out the British tanks and the American tanks, and France has lost a quarter of their tanks so far. So tank attrition is pretty high. The Italian Alps, that battle, Italy and Austria are just beating each other into a pulp. No side is really gaining an advantage, but both sides are just bleeding troops left and right. Let's see. In the East, the Russian Civil War. The Soviets, they kind of attacked across all fronts. Came down from Petrograd, took Minsk, attacked the North White Russians in Smolensk and Kursk. Smolensk went really badly for the Soviets. Kursk went really well for the Soviets. They moved into eastern Ukraine as about equal losses. And then the Czech Legion is on its epic journey back home, has to go all the way east. Each turn it rolls a dice. That's how many territories it can move. If it runs into a territory with Soviet forces in it, it has to make a dice roll against the Soviets. If they win the dice roll, then they can pass through the territory. If they lose, they have to stay. Soviets moved into Kalmyskaya, took it from the South White Russians. And then they also moved into the Urals to attack the East White Russians. Both sides reduced each other down to 1 infantry. The East White Russians won the die roll, so they got to go. They used their two IPCs, put down a militia to reinforce the Urals. Because the Soviets have to take the Urals before they can move further east. See, Germany, they leased an infantry to Finland and Estonia, and then moved infantry and artillery into Estonia to guard against the Soviets trying to move into the Baltics. And then England and France both donated an infantry to Latvia and Lithuania, respectively, to keep the Soviets out. And that's about it for the Russian Civil War. France took the Darfur Sultanate, so that is the last Central Powers possession in Africa. The Central Powers have been completely pushed out of Africa. And the Pacific, because the Japanese took Penape here, so that was the last German/Central Powers possession in the Pacific. So the Entente is slowly closing in on the Central Powers. New unit unlocked on the board. Aircraft carriers has been unlocked, so England has started construction of its first aircraft carrier. And that's it. So we are now at the spring of 1918. So we got a couple of things happening spring of 1918. The first is Finland. The Finnish Civil War starts between the White Finns and the Red Finns. So basically, the democratic government versus a communist rebellion, revolt, takeover, whatever you want to call it. The Entente powers, so England, France, the United States, and Japan, have all agreed to quasi-support the White Russians, so they'll be sending forces to Russia to block certain paths from for the Soviets. And the Spanish flu has now struck the world. So how that's going to work is every major power, only the major powers, so Austria, Germany, England, France, United States, Ottomans, they roll a d6, and whatever the value divided by half rounded down is how many units they must take as casualties. And if they can take them on infantry, and if they have a hospital nearby, they have a chance of getting them back. But so every turn a major power has to do that because the Spanish flu is ravaging the world, and historically this killed millions of people.
Commander, you've got a new message at your private terminal.
Sorry for that. My wife is blowing up my phone. Some estimates say the Spanish flu killed more people than the Great War itself did. So that will be something the major powers will have to contend with. So we'll do the spring of 1918 and come back with an update. Alright, we got the spring of 1918 update. So continuing with the left to right. The Mexican rebels attacked the Federales. They got a hit with no hits for themselves. So that's pretty good for them. In the Battle for the Atlantic, Germans went after the convoy line, didn't get anything. Went after this convoy line, managed to get 2 IPCs worth of damage. The new British destroyers are having an effect. They've taken out all the German submarines on that convoy line, so the only German submarines left are down here. And then Germans, they sent their Zeppelin over and bombed the London factory. Oh, sorry, that's Liverpool. London's down here. Did two IPCs of damage, and the British repaired one of their dreadnoughts, sent it back up to rejoin the blockade. England has finished the research on advanced fighters, so next turn it'll be able to put out advanced fighters. Granted, it won't have any effect on the Great War, because there's only one turn left in the Great War. But it will matter in the post-war, because there's a bunch of stuff that happens in the post-war. England can continue construction on its aircraft carrier. On the Western Front, the British pushed the Germans out of Picardia, forcing them to retreat into Belgium. And then the United States chased after them. Weren't able to push them out of Belgium, but maybe the British will be able to next turn. We'll see. France attacked the Germans once again in Lorraine. Pretty heavy casualty on both sides. So maybe this last turn, maybe France will be able to push them out of Lorraine. Maybe, who knows? But the Alps, Italy and Austria are still battering the hell out of each other. I don't think Italy is probably not going to be able to push them out of northern Italy. Let's see, in the Eastern Theater, the White Finns defeated the Red Finns, so Finland will not go communist. Well, I mean, it still could. The Soviets can attack Finland, but they're not going to take it through revolution or civil war. For the most part, things went really bad for the Soviets. The only success they had was down here in Kazakhstan. They took Kazakhstan from the South White Russians. Everywhere else went abysmal. They didn't make any headway in Kursk or Smolensk. Well, they did take Belorussia on the march, so I guess that was another success. But Kursk and Smolensk did not go well for the Soviets. That was it for the Eastern Theater. Germany leased artillery to Finland and Estonia. England leased artillery to Latvia, and France artillery to Lithuania, trying to build that up to counter the Soviets. Over here in Middle East, big setback for the British. The British tried to attack the Ottomans in Palestine and got horribly diced. The British Colonial Command, they got 1 or 2 hits, but the Ottomans got a really good roll and completely wiped the British out. And so then, what was left had to fall back to Cairo, and then the Ottomans chased them and hit them in Cairo. And the Ottomans almost took Cairo. They missed it by 1. All that was left was that Italian infantry. That would have been huge, but because that Italian infantry was there, Cairo barely managed to hold on. And so, fortunately, Colonial Command has pretty substantial reinforcements in Egypt proper that they can move into Cairo to secure it, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side you're on, Palestine is firmly in Ottoman hands and will remain in Ottoman hands. On the other side of the Middle East, the Colonial Command did manage to take Iraq. So then this force will be moving into Baghdad, see if it can take Baghdad before time runs out. And that's about it. All technology has been researched, so everything is as up to date as it can. And quite a different war than what it started. When this thing started, pretty much all that was on the board was just infantry and artillery. Now there's a whole slew of new things, tanks, and a lot more fighter planes on the board, destroyers, and various technologies, creeping barrage, and chemical weapons, and specialty units like stormtroopers and RDD and Marines. So it is quite the different war than what it started as. So we'll do the fall of 1918, and that will be the last turn for the Great War. That's not the end of the scenario. There's still a lot of post-war stuff that happens, but for the Great War, we got 1 turn left. So we'll get to it, and we'll come back with an update for the fall of 1918. Alright, so we got the fall of 1918 done. So starting left to right. The Mexican Civil War, the Mexican rebels attacked the Federales. Both sides lost a unit. Then the Battle of the Atlantic. German submarines went after the Southern Convoy line. Weren't able to get anything because British convoy tactics are pretty effective negating these relatively early primitive submarines. British sent their new destroyers down to hunt the submarines, managed to get one. And England finished construction of its aircraft carriers. It'll be the first carrier in the Terra Bellum scenarios so far in the global war. England finished the repairs on its dreadnought, sent it back up to join the rest of the fleet in the blockade. German Zeppelin did 2 bunch of damage on the London factory. The Paris gun did 2 points of damage on the Paris factory. So going to the Western Theater. Belgium has been liberated. England and the United States managed to push the Germans out of Belgium. And then France attacked the Germans in Verdun and Lorraine. Weren't able to push them out of either. I forgot to mention last chapter that Germany put down its first tank. And so this turn also constituted the first tank versus tank engagement of the Terra Bellum Global War series. Pretty heavy casualties in the air war between England, United States, and Germany. Something like 4 or 5 fighters were lost. England put out its first advanced fighter. Didn't play any part in the Great War, but in the post-war it'll be useful. But I'll get into that next chapter. Let's see, Eastern Theater. Germany, England, and France continuing to lease units to the Baltic states to build their forces up against the Soviets. As you can see, England and France have moved troops into Archangel to assist the White Russians against the Soviets. Czech Legion was successful in moving through Soviet lines. They have to follow a rail line, and the White Russians get a point if they can get the Czech Legion all the way home. So they have to go all the way to Vladivostok, way over there. Soviets only made 2 attacks in Smolensk and Kursk. Kursk went well for the Soviets. Smolensk did not. And Soviets put down their unique unit and new unit to the Terra Bellum series, the armored car. Hits out of 2, moves out of 2, and can be paired with infantry and 1-to-1 to give the infantry a +1 attack and defense. Let's see, in the Middle East, British Colonial Command tried to push the Ottomans out of Cairo. Were not successful in that endeavor. Pretty equal losses on both sides. But the British did attack Baghdad and managed to take it, so Baghdad has fallen. And then Japanese have moved forces into Angara in the continuing mission to assist the White Russians against the Soviets. And the United States is moving forces to Vladivostok to also assist in that endeavor. So that is pretty much it for the fall of 1918. So the Great War is over. The armistice has been signed. Tallied the points, and final score is the Entente 11 points, the Central Powers 6 points. So it is an Entente victory. But like I've said a couple times, the Great War is over, but that does not mean the scenario is over. There's still a lot of post-war stuff that happens, events, political stuff, and plenty of fighting. Like the Great War is over, but right out of the gate, 4 separate wars spring up across the globe right out of the gate. So still plenty of fighting going on. It's just much smaller in scale. But we'll get into those conflicts the next chapter, because there's a little bit of board resetting that has to go on, because the Russian Empire is already gone, but now the German, Austro-Hungarian, and the Ottoman empires all collapse, and so their military, there's some removal, reduction, and some moving around that has to happen. So we'll come back at the beginning of spring 1919 to do kind of an overview of what's going on with this post-war world. So we'll see you then. Alright, so we're at the spring of 1919, and as you can see, the board is a lot emptier. It's because with the armistice being signed, pretty much all the major powers started instantly basically downsizing their militaries. Cut budget bending, because all the major powers except probably the United States was in a major debt. Of course, Germany, due to the Treaty of Versailles that will be signed this year, 1919, being forced to drastically reduce its military. That's to reduce it down to 4 infantry. One of the things I've for the last 2 turns I've been forgetting to do is the Spanish flu, so I just kind of retroactively did that. United States lost 2 infantry because of it. England lost 1 or 2. France lost 1, so on and so forth. You can see Austro-Hungarian Empire has collapsed. It's now split into Austria, Hungary, Yugoslavia, a couple other nations, and the Ottoman Empire has collapsed as well. It's now just Turkey and the various other states. So now what is going on now? Well, the Russian Civil War hasn't changed. That's still going as normal. England, France, and Italy will have mandates. So these are territories that they have to station troops in, at least 1 infantry. England has the most by far. Togoland, Cameroon, German South Africa, German East Africa, Palestine, and Iraq. France has Syria, Alsace, and Rhineland. And Italy has the Dervish states. And so they have to move units into there and keep units stationed there at all times, and they have to do it at the earliest convenience. The other thing is revolts will be randomly popping up across the globe. Each nation will roll a dice, roll a d6, and whatever the number comes up, and there's a chart. Whatever number comes up, that's what territory will revolt. And it has to, if any one of those territories at any time ever gets 6 or more partisans in that territory, it will have drastic results going into World War II. And then there'll be some other things going on, plebiscites and And then there's also full-scale wars going on. So like I said in the last chapter, 4 wars kick off right out of the gate. So Poland becomes an independent nation and goes to war with the Soviet Union. Ireland has revolted again, so going to war with the British. Hungary and Romania go to war. And Turkey, newly independent, goes to war with Greece, England, and France. So 4 wars right out of the gate. And then, as you can see, everyone's productions have been reduced because, like I said, the nations are downsizing their militaries, and also because of the massive debt that they've all racked up. They just don't have the budget for their militaries anymore because they're trying to downsize and trying to pay off their huge debts. As you can see, certain nations are gone, but on the flip side, some new nations have been added. Mostly Poland, Ireland, and whatnot. And then the other thing is, from now on, the major powers, so Germany, England, France, United States, Japan, Italy, all the units they produce from now on will carry forward into World War II. So whatever they produce from now till the basically end of the Great War scenario is what they will start World War II with. Granted, my World War II doesn't start, 1939. It starts in 1927, actually. So, what the hurdle for the post-war is, all the various nations have to start basically building a brand new military because of the technology between World War I and World War II changes drastically. So all the various nations are basically trying to build a brand new military on top of all the new commitments they all have between mandates, putting down revolts, leasing units to various minor powers that are trying to fight for or against communism, and none of them have the budget to do all at once. So they're going to have to pick and choose what they're going to do each turn, what they're going to support. So that's a hurdle. It's a economic balancing act more than it is a go forth and conquer territory thing. So that's a pretty brief overview of what the post-war game is. Like I said, there's political stuff that happens, but we'll get more into those when that actually happens. But right now, it's just Poland goes to war with the Soviets, Ireland revolts, Hungary and Romania go to war, and Turkey, newly independent Turkey, goes to war with Greece and England and France. And then the various powers scrambling to get forces to the various mandates that they're responsible for, and then just putting down revolts as they spring up all over the place. Romania can receive leased units from England and France. Hungary, because actually Hungary was a communist government, can get leased units from the Soviets. That's going to be primarily how they get their units to fight this conflict. So we will do spring of 1919 and come back with an update. See you then. Alright, we are at the spring of 1920. So this is 1 year after the armistice.
and quite a bit has changed and gone on. The Mexican Civil War is more or less stalemated. Looked like, for a little bit, it looked like the rebels were going to defeat the federal government, but the Federales managed to rally and pull back from the brink. The American fleet has returned to home ports, but not the Marines, unfortunately, because they are revolts in Cuba and Haiti that they need to put down. So they've been diverted to Caribbean to put those revolts down. The Irish revolt continues. Despite England bringing pretty much the entirety of their expeditionary force over to Ireland, shows no signs of abating. Tunis has now revolted again. Then the revolt in the Darfur Sultanate is still going on. France did put down the revolt in Syria, but now the one in Tunis cropped up. England has moved its first aircraft carrier, the Argus, into the sea between the Middle East and India. So its advanced fighter is in a advantageous position to respond to either British Raj or the Middle East in case of a revolt. Korea is continuing to revolt against Japan. As you can see, Japan, the United States, England, and Italy have started their next generation capital ships. They started their early World War II battleships that will replace their dreadnoughts. In Europe, Germany's got revolts in both Berlin and North Germany. It's trying to put those down. In Eastern Europe, the Russian Civil War continues. The Soviets finally took Smolensk, so now that opens the door, or opens the road to Poland, which they're at war with. But because of Smolensk's stand that went on a lot longer than expected, the Soviets are only going to get pretty much one shot at Poland before that war concludes, and in order for them to win, they have to take Warsaw. So Poland is guaranteed to win because there's only 2 turns left in the Polish-Soviet War, and the Soviets are going to have to spend one of those 2 turns just getting to the front. So that means they're going to get only 1 turn to hit Poland, and even if they win that, the war will conclude before they can get to Poland or to Warsaw. So Poland is because of Smolensk's stand, Poland is pretty much guaranteed its independence. Soviet campaign in Ukraine is still being held up in eastern Ukraine. Romania has defeated Hungary in the Romanian-Hungarian War. And because of lack of support from the Soviets, the communist faction in Hungary has been defeated. Romania will get a good chunk of Hungary. So going into World War II, Romania's production will be a lot higher. And Hungary's government will be fascist aligned instead of communist aligned. Greece has moved into Turkey. Initial combat did not go well for Greece. They didn't get any hits, whereas Turkey got a hit on the Greeks. And some Armenian partisans have shown up in Kars, so Turkey will have to put that down. And then German, British, and French troops are all garrisoned in the Baltics, ensuring that the Soviets will have a much harder time moving on the Baltics, giving the Baltic states a chance to build up. Germany, England, and France have been leasing units to the Baltic states, so they got quite a formidable army up there to ensure the Soviets can't take the Baltics. British and French troops are continuing to garrison Archangel, keep it out of Bolshevik hands. And same thing in Eastern Russia. American and Japanese forces are holding Angara. So the Soviets want to move into Angara. They'd have to fight the British or the American and Japanese forces there. One thing I did forget to do is I forgot to move the Czech Legion. Czech Legion is continuing its march to Vladivostok to go home. And that pretty much is it for... So that was the fall of 1919, so that pretty much concludes the turn. So we'll come back with the fall of 1920 and see what's changed. See you then. Alright, now we are at the fall of 1920. And the two events for fall of 1920 is the Mexican Civil War is over. Ended in a draw for us. Going forward, that pretty much is it for Mexico. Mexico pretty much doesn't really play any part in any future scenario, so going forward, Mexico just reunifies. And then the other event is the Spanish flu is over, thankfully. That was taking a very heavy toll on all the nations involved. Can't tell how many units were lost because of that. But the United States put down the revolts in Cuba and Haiti. Irish revolt is still going strong. The British were able to knock the Irish rebels down to just two infantry, but then the Irish got a really good roll and got six infantry in their recruitment roll. The Entente commitment to helping the White Russians is over. Fed up with corruption, incompetence, and generally a lack of will to cooperate. The Entente is more or less withdrawn its support from the White Russians, which for the White Russian faction is a total disaster. France put down the revolt in Tunis, and France also invaded Kars, linked up with the Armenian partisans. Greece continued to put pressure on Constantinople. Soviets moving to hit Poland, and with the Entente withdrawing their support, they've also withdrawn all their forces from the Baltic states, so that'll be open to Soviet invasion, unfortunately. And that's about it. You can see all the various powers working hard on upgrading their navies to the World War II. Ships. And England preparing to do something about this revolt down here. Moved the Argus with its air group to support the assault. And that's about it. Continued stalemate in Ukraine. Soviets still unable to break through. But once the Polish War is over, that's going to free up a lot of Soviet forces, and Ukraine's survival after that is going to be problematic at best. Revolts continuing in Germany. The Wehrmacht forces tried to put down the revolt in Berlin and northern Germany and were unsuccessful in both. So we will come back with the spring of 1921. See you then. Alright, we are at the spring of 1921. So we'll do the fall of 1920 recap. The United States, it finished its 3 battleships that it was constructing, and then it put down the revolt in Cuba, and that's about all America did. England, the revolt in Ireland is ongoing and going nowhere fast for the British. I think they got 1 turn left, so England would have to pretty much get an absolutely perfect roll, which is not going to happen. So it looks like Ireland is going to win its independence. Let's see. Germany was able to completely put down the revolt in northern Germany, but was unsuccessful in Berlin. France didn't have any, I take that back. French forces assist the Armenian partisans in Kars, managed to get a hit on the Turks, but France lost their Armenian help as well. Greece hit Turkey on the west side, and and actually got a hit with no losses of their own. Let's see, so in Russia, Germany attacked Poland, and actually and it was actually a bloodbath on both sides. Poland was reduced down to 1 infantry. They put that militia there on their purchase, and Russia lost like 3 infantry as well, so that was pretty costly for both sides. The Soviets got a big hit in eastern Ukraine, got 3 hits for one loss of their own. And then the Soviets continued their eastern push, took Angara unopposed, because the Americans and Japanese have pulled out. England attempted to put down this revolt, here in Central Africa were unsuccessful. Also, their first carrier launched operation, the advanced fighter launched from the Argus aircraft carrier. England occupied another one of its mandates, Iraq. And France reoccupied its colony in French Indochina. Japan completed its first World War II battleship and put down the revolt in Korea. And that is pretty much all the action this turn, or last turn, sorry. So this, like I said, this turn, this is the spring of 1921. And so what's going on now, the Polish-Soviet war is over, but the next political thing is the Silesian plebiscite over here in Galicia. And that's basically a vote was going on in the Silesian province area, which country they wanted to belong to, whether it be Poland or Germany, or not Germany, Poland and I believe Austria. I might have that wrong, but anyways, what ended up happening is both Poland and Germany were basically start supplying partisans in the area to try to swing the vote, and it actually started a kind of small conflict in the area, and ended up in both England and France sending troops to Silesia to try to stop the fighting. But here's the kicker. The British ended up supporting the German-backed partisans, and France supported the Polish-backed partisans. So you got two former enemies supporting opposing sides, one of them being what they just spent the last 4 years fighting against. So interwar period. It's crazy time. So the start of the Silesian plebiscite begins, and so you'll probably start seeing partisans popping up in Galicia, and then British and French troops being sent there to try to stop / support one faction or the other. So we'll get to the turn and come back with an update. Alright, now we got the spring of 1921 done. So there was nothing going on in the Americas. Weren't any revolts to put down. And America didn't put down any new units. It did start another battleship, a fleet carrier, and started another cruiser. In Europe, the Irish Rebellion is over. Ireland has gained its independence. England couldn't muster enough forces to put it down on top of all its other commitments around the world. But, so England loses Ireland, but it does free up a lot of British manpower that it desperately needs around the world. It's still got to fulfill its 3 mandates in Africa. And then England's gotten lucky so far that no revolts have happened in India, but you know, that luck can only last so long, so Irish Rebellion being over will free up a lot of British manpower to deal with some of those. And Galicia, Poland, and Germany have sent their partisans to Galicia to try to sway the vote. England and France have sent troops there to try to keep the violence to a minimum.
Germany was able to put down all of its revolts, put down its revolt in Berlin and East Germany. So they are revolt free for the moment. England, it made attacks in Palestine and the Darfur Sultanate, try to put down those revolts. England was able to take out one of them, but it lost its infantry in return. So England's going to have to get another infantry down here so it doesn't risk its advanced fighter. And then Palestine was a draw. Let's see, Japan. Last turn it completed its battleship, so this turn it started construction of a fleet carrier. And in Russia, Soviets moved into Buryatia, and I'm sure I butchered that, but all sides missed. Czech Legion moved into the region, continuing their quest home. And the western part of Russia, Soviets attacked Ukraine, eastern Ukraine again, and it actually went pretty well. Reduced it down to just that one infantry, so they almost took it. Ukraine put down another militia as reinforcements. Then the Soviets moved into Lithuania, attacked Lithuania, got 2 hits for one of their own. Yeah. And then they also moved into Finland, and that was a total disaster for the Soviets. The only thing that survived was the 1 infantry. So that's probably going to have to pull out or get reinforcements sooner rather than later. And that was the turn. So not a whole lot of action. The big event being the Irish Rebellion is over and Ireland successfully gaining its independence. So we'll get going with the fall of 1921 turn. See you then. Alright, so we're on the fall of 1922. And starting in the Americas, the United States has a revolt in Central America it's got to put down now. It's completed 2 new cruisers, so that we're going into World War II. And you can see down in Florida, the guys that were sent to Angara, Russia, have finally returned. I'm sure they're happy to be home. The British have completed all 3 of their battleships, and now they're working on a 4th battleship and some cruisers. I see in Europe, Germany has another revolt in Berlin to put down. And this Germany's pretty much going to be constantly putting down revolts. The Russian Civil War, Kiev has fallen. So it looks like Ukraine is not long for the world. Soviets have moved into the Baltic states. Latvia was a complete disaster for the Soviets. They lost all but 1 unit and didn't get any hits in return. So that was a total disaster. And then
France has a revolt in Tunis to put down. The British went in pretty hard into Palestine to try to put that revolt down. They almost succeeded. They took down all but one revolter. But now the British Raj has revolted. The British have, now that the Irish Rebellion is over, it's freed up a lot of manpower, so England has been able to take care of some of its mandates. It took a land in Cameroon. And Japan is working on a fleet carrier. So that's about it. So the global events, the Silesian plebiscite is over. It ended in a stalemate. They couldn't come to an agreement, so that's been shelved for further down the road, i.e. World War II. And then the other event is the Washington Naval Treaty has happened. So what that means is the world's larger naval powers, so the United States, England, France, Italy, and Japan, have to agree on a capital ship limit. There's two options that they have to choose from. It's 5 for America, 5 for England, 3 for Japan, 2 for France, 1 for Italy, or 5 for America, 5 for England, 4 for Japan, 2 for France, 1 for Italy. Now there's 5 different options that can be put on the table to try to bargain for one way or the other. One is the United States can't build any bases in the Pacific until they're actually at war. Second option is the United States can build bases in the Pacific. Third option is a cruiser and destroyer limit, limiting how many cruisers and destroyers everybody can have, and that is cumulative. Fourth option is a ban on submarines, and the fifth option is Italy gets an additional capital ship slot, so it would be able to have 2 instead of 1. So after vigorous negotiating with the future Axis player, i.e. my son, we settled on the 5-5-3 ratio. So 5 capital ships for America, 5 for England, 3 for Japan. With the understanding that the United States, i.e. me, would not be able to build bases in the Pacific until at war, and Italy would get an additional capital ship slot, so Italy can build 2 capital ships instead of 1. So that was the agreement that we hammered out, and so that's what all of us will have to abide by going forward. And granted, once we get to the World War II map, at a certain point, all the powers will be able to break the Washington Naval Treaty. Japan will be able to break it sooner than everybody else, but that is the reality going forward. So to recap, the United States and England are capped at 5 capital ships. Japan is capped at 3, France is capped at 2, and Italy is capped at 2. So, we will see you next turn. Okay, we're at the spring of 1923. And the United States put down the revolt in Central America and then finished its fleet carrier, another battleship. Although it doesn't have the planes to put on said fleet carrier, but that's a problem we'll worry about in World War II. Then
Germany failed to put down the revolt in Berlin, but that's the only revolt it's got going on right at the moment, so it's in a zero danger of calamity, because there's only 2 turns left in this, so it only turns into a calamity if you have 6 or more current militia revoltists going on by the end of the scenario. Soviets, they attacked western Ukraine, weren't able to take it. The Ukrainians held on with 1 militia, but unfortunately, because the Soviets have Kiev, means the Soviets are going to get Ukraine at the end of this. Or good thing, depending on which side of the fence you're on. The British put down the revolt in Palestine and British Raj. So the only revolt they got going on is the Darfur Sultanate. And the British continued their construction of their battleship and 2 cruisers. Italy finished its construction on its cruiser. Japan finished its fleet carrier and started construction of another one. And the Soviets have pushed all the way to the border of Vladivostok. And that's pretty much it for the last turn. So the big event for spring of 1923 is the Russian Civil War is over. Now I haven't counted the points, but I'm pretty sure I don't need to. Pretty sure the Soviets won just by all the roundels on the board. So the Russian Empire under the Tsars and the Romanovs has fallen, and the Soviet Union is taking its place, going into World War II. Aside from the Soviets' only real victory is over the White Russians. They barely defeated Ukraine kind of the last minute. Got absolutely stomped by Poland, and got absolutely stomped by the Baltic states and Finland. But the Soviets won where it mattered. They beat the White Russians and they took Ukraine. That's the 2 ones they absolutely need to have going into World War II. So all in all, the Soviets did pretty good. So like I said, this is the second to last turn of the game, so we'll just come back at the end of the game. Won't do a video for this turn because there's only 2 turns left, so and nothing political happens. So we'll just come back at the end of the game with the end of the game update. See you then. Alright, we're at the fall of the end of the fall of 1923 turn and the end of the game. So I'll just kind of do a quick recap of what happened. It wasn't much, but and then we'll do final thoughts. So United States put down another revolt in Cuba, and then finished its cruiser line, put down a destroyer, and then some World War II artillery. It did buy an early war fighter for World War II to put on the fleet carrier. Actually, that should be on the fleet carrier. England finished all its constructions, finished its 4th battleship, put down two cruisers, World War II destroyer. Did a bit of a gamble, sent 1 infantry to the Darfur Sultanate to try to, Hail Mary put down the revolt and actually pulled it off. We got 2 revolts in Calcutta that England was able to put down with their artillery and advanced fighter. Japan putting down revolts in Korea, still working on its 2nd fleet carrier. England started another cruiser. Germany, it did manage to put down those revolts in Berlin, had another one in North Germany that it put down. Italy finished its cruiser, built a World War II destroyer. France put down 2 World War II transports, a submarine, and a destroyer. One thing I forgot to mention in the last video is we had some action in Kars and Constantinople. The French, with some Armenian partisans, attacked the Turks in Kars, and then this turn a British element, an infantry and artillery, showed up, attacked the Turks as well. Wasn't able to take Kars. Turks were able to hold on with the militia and an infantry. And Greece has been hitting Constantinople every chance they can get. As you can see, Turkey still holds it. But as the end of that conflict, Turkey going to World War II neutral because the Entente powers could not take it. Let's see, it's about it. England has all the powers that had to fulfilled their mandates. England, Togoland, Cameroon, the German West Africa, German East Africa, Palestine, Iraq. So it's fulfilled all of its mandates. France with Syria, and then Alsace and the Rhineland. Hope if I put it in frame, there we go. So that is the end of the game. One thing to mention that everything, all the World War II stuff that the nations have built since the start in 1919 will carry forward into World War II. So what you've built in the interwar period does matter. And then for like-kind replacement, so a World War II infantry will replace a World War I infantry, and you'll get a third of that cost back because you're selling the old equipment and tech to other nations. So, and so like artillery, cruisers, dreadnoughts, you'll get a portion of that money back when you replace it. If you don't have a World War II unit to replace, then the unit's just lost. All World War I stuff is removed, does not carry forward. So it is actually kind of critical what you build during the interwar period, because that's what you're going to start World War II off with. Granted, our World War II doesn't start at when it kicks off. Our World War II starts in 1927, so you're still going to have a bit of time to build up, but it's only for the first 4 or 5 turns, because as you know, in October 1929, the stock market crashes and causes the Great Depression. So when that happens, pretty much everyone's production is going to drop down to 1, and no one's going to be building anything much for quite a while. So this interwar period is, after World War I, is your big window to get some stuff put out, because for a good portion of the pre-war World War II, you're not going to have a production. Well, I mean, you'll have production of 1, but it's not going to buy you much. So, and of course the Washington Naval Treaty carries forward. certain nations will be able to break that treaty at certain points. Japan is going to be able to break it the earliest. Germany is restricted to just in this interwar period and start of the World War II, Germany is restricted to just infantry and artillery that it can purchase. When we put the World War II map up, it can branch out a little bit into like motorized infantry. Germany can't unlock anything substantial than that, like tanks, planes, ships. They can't unlock that until 1933, when Hitler takes power. So, yeah, that's kind of the all there is to say about it. This is still not. This isn't ready to be put out. It's still a year or two out down the road. If I had to give a state where it's at, I'd probably say it's in a beta state. Still some kinks to get hammered out. Like some of the stuff in the interwar period. What can be built, what can't be built, what gets carried forward, maybe some of the production values that the nations have in the interwar period can be tweaked. So it's still in testing. I know it's kind of hard for you guys to tell by just only seeing an end-of-turn recap, but if you guys got any ideas or that could make it better, please put it in the comments. Or if you see something that's like, hey, if someone does this, it'll totally break. I can foresee it totally breaking the game. By all means, bring it up, because I said this is not set in stone. This is still in the testing phase. But let us know what you think. Wife and I have been working on this for years. But yeah, that's our World War I. So our next video would be the reveal of our World War II map, and that is probably the least ready of the four maps we got. Our World War II is so new, it hasn't even been play tested before. It is all theory on paper. So our next video, we're going to do World War II, and that'll be the first time actually trying to play it at all. Everything has been theory on paper, so that'll be interesting. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you with World War II.